Hey, Stan Deaton with the Georgia Historical Society. Welcome back. You saw that I just put my seatbelt on here in my car. That's because the state of Georgia has a law that we have to wear our seatbelts when we drive. This is the first video in a series of 4 that examines this year's Georgia History Festival theme, governing Georgia across 3 centuries. We're going to take a look in this video about how local, state, and federal government touches our lives, and we're also going to talk about why we have government at all and how it began and what it does.
Since the beginning of time, when governments were established, whatever kind of government they were, whether monarchy, government through kings and queens, aristocracy, government by a select few, or democracy, government by the people, governments have always been established with 2 things in mind: establishing security and order. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, think about putting on the seatbelt when you get into a car. Anytime we drive on roads here, we always agree to abide by the traffic laws, whether they be speed limits or stop signs or red lights. That's the government imposing order on us so that we all have collective security. If everybody got on the road and drove any way they wanted to, we'd have anarchy and chaos. We have driver's licenses issued by the state in which you have to pass a test. And again, we all agreed to abide by the driving laws. You may remember during the pandemic, there was a great deal of national discussion and controversy over wearing masks and being able to congregate in large numbers. A lot of people said that was an infringement on individual freedom, and it was. But that is essentially what government does. It asks each of us to give up some of our individual freedom in order to have collective security and order. But that's not all government does. Government also collectively provides services that we ourselves could not provide individually. For instance, when you dial 911, you are asking your local government to provide either EMS service for a medical emergency, police, or, as you can see behind me, fire. Now, in the old days, back before these kinds of services were available through local governments, if your house caught on fire, you either grabbed a hose or you asked all your neighbors to pitch in and put out the fire. Now, we all pay taxes to fund these kinds of services in our local communities. Government also provides infrastructure, like roads and bridges, so that goods and services can go back and forth over our nation's roads and highways. And of course, the federal government also provides currency. Andrew Jackson, here on the $20 bill, currency that keeps our economy flowing smoothly for all citizens here in the country. We've talked about local government and state government. One of the things that our federal government does is one of the functions of the oldest governments in the world. And that is, of course, provide the military. From ancient days, pharaohs and kings had armies, not only to secure their own lands and borders, but sometimes to invade their neighbors. That function is, of course, still provided by the federal government in this republic. Our armed forces all answer to the federal government and ultimately to the president, who is our commander-in-chief. Now, one way in which the federal government touches our lives every single day is through the institution that you see behind me, the United States Postal Service, which goes all the way back to Ben Franklin, who was our first Postmaster General. Every single day when the mail is delivered to your house, you've had a touch with the federal government. One of the great things that government does, one of the greatest, I believe, is provide green space for all of our citizens to enjoy at all levels, local, state, and national. I'm standing in one of Savannah's famous squares maintained by the city of Savannah. There are state parks all over Georgia for us to enjoy, and of course, we all revere the national parks at the federal level. The question has always been, how much government is too much? How big is too big? How much should government intrude into our lives? How much of our own individual freedom should we give up in order to secure our liberty and order? It's questions that have been asked since the beginning of the Republic in 1776, and really going back even further than that in the colonial period. And it's not going away anytime soon. We have political parties that are, of course, founded upon answering these questions, and every time Americans go to the polls, they are giving part of the answer to that question, and it changes as the needs of society change as we go through time. But the fact that we disagree so fiercely about it and are able to do so is also a hallmark of the freedom and liberty that we all enjoy. I hope you've enjoyed this first of 4 videos dedicated to this year's Georgia History Festival theme, Georgians Governing Across 3 Centuries. There'll be 3 more to come. I'm Stan Deaton with the Georgia Historical Society. As always, thank you for watching.